Just unbelievable. Well, look, when the government finally reopens this week, we're expecting Congress to continue.
When you look at the flow that we've seen with Solana, the BSOL, Bitwise courses, the XRP ETFs, we had Stephen on the other day.
All right, everyone. We're officially in the final 24 hours. And if you take a look at what I've got pulled up here, see that hot topic section in the top right? That's where all the buzz is happening right now in the crypto community on CoinMarketCap. And guess what's got everyone talking? XRP ETF debuts on NASDAQ tomorrow. And the big question is, just how massive could the market reaction be? So here's the deal. Tomorrow is the day we've been waiting for with this ETF launch. Now, I'm going to keep it real with you guys because that's what we do here. Am I expecting XRP to absolutely skyrocket to $3, $4, or $5 overnight like some people are predicting? Honestly, probably not. What I am looking for is a solid, positive market reaction. I want to see this chart start showing us some real bullish momentum again. Nothing crazy dramatic, but just good, healthy movement in the right direction. Here's why this ETF is actually a huge deal, though, and this is important. It's going to be the very first 100% spot-based ETF. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, wait, what about that Osprey ETF? Great question. That one isn't actually 100% spot-weighted, and we'll dive into those details in just a minute. But looking at the technicals right now, the chart is still looking pretty solid. My expectation? We might see price test that trend line one more time, hopefully get a clean close above it, and then that's when things could get really interesting for the uptrend.
Now, here's what I'm really watching for, and this is crucial, guys. I need to see XRP close above $2.65 on the weekly time frame. That's my key target, and honestly, until that happens, I'm not getting too worked up about the day-to-day price action. Look, I know some of you might think I'm being a bit cautious here, but I'm keeping my emotions in check until we actually break through these critical levels. Because let's be honest, we've seen this before, right? Just recently, people were getting all hyped up saying, oh my God, look, XRP is pumping. But here's the thing, I've been doing this long enough to know that real, sustainable moves happen when we break key resistance levels and hold them. So while everyone else is getting caught up in the short-term excitement, I'm keeping my eyes on what really matters, that weekly close above $2.65. That's when I'll start getting genuinely excited about where this thing could be headed next.
So naturally, I pulled up the chart to see what all the fuss was about. And you know what? Yeah, it does look pretty impressive when you're staring at that 4-hour time frame. You've got this nice upward move that catches your eye right away. But here's the reality check. When you really break it down and look at the bigger picture, that big move everyone's talking about, it's actually not as massive as it appears. It's one of those situations where the time frame can be a bit deceiving. You know what I mean?
We're talking about a move from $2.24 all the way up to around $2.57. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're someone who trades on those lower time frames or you're using some leverage to amplify your positions, then yeah, that's definitely a move you can work with and potentially profit from. But here's the thing, when we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, that move we just talked about, it's really not as massive as it might seem on the surface. The bottom line is, XRP still has quite a bit of work ahead of it on this chart. We need to see some serious momentum to break through these important resistance levels. And you know what? This is where tomorrow's ETF launch could be our game changer. If it can give us the push we need to close the week above these key levels, that would be seriously bullish for what's coming next. But all right, let's dive into a few other important things I want to cover with you guys. All right, let's jump right into something huge that's been developing, and I'm talking about the Clarity Act. This is big news, people. So check this out. David Sachs just dropped some major updates for us. The Senate AG Committee has officially released a bipartisan draft of market structure legislation. And when I say bipartisan, I mean we've got both sides of the aisle working together on this, which is pretty incredible in today's political climate. We've got to give credit where credit's due. Thanks to the leadership from Chairman John Boozman and Senator Booker, we're literally taking a massive step forward here. We're talking about getting the regulatory clarity that the crypto industry has been desperately waiting for. And here's the kicker. This could be what finally positions the United States as the crypto capital of the world. I mean, think about how huge that would be for the entire space.
Now, there's actually a video connected to all of this that we're going to dive into in just a minute. But first, I want to share something really interesting from Matt Hugan. He's the CIO over at Bitwise, so this guy definitely knows what he's talking about. He's saying something that I think a lot of people are missing right now. The market is seriously underestimating the probability of success on this market structure legislation. And honestly, I completely agree with him on this one. Here's my take on the timeline. I think we could realistically see this thing fully passed by the end of Q1 2026. Now look, would I love to see it happen by the end of this year? Absolutely, that would be incredible. But let's be realistic here. These things tend to take a bit longer than we'd like. I know there are people out there saying, January, it's happening in January. And hey, it's definitely possible. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I'm setting my expectations for sometime in Q1. That's when I think we'll see this legislation actually make it all the way through the system and become official. And speaking of progress, we've got some fantastic updates from French Hill. He's with the Financial Services GOP, and he was on Mornings with Maria dropping some serious insights. Listen to what he said. We made real progress during September and October on market structure for digital assets. Now this is huge because we're talking about the Clarity Act here. Remember, this is the same bill that passed the House back in July with support from 78 Democrats. That's some serious bipartisan momentum right there. But here's where it gets really exciting. French Hill says the Senate is doing intensive work on this right now, and they're making strong progress. He's actually optimistic that they could wrap this up in the coming days. Now, he did mention that the government shutdown kind of threw a wrench in things and slowed down the process a bit. But here's the key part. He's looking forward to working with the Senate to get this thing across the finish line and straight to President Trump's desk. Guys, this could be happening way sooner than we thought. Let me show you exactly what he said.
Just unbelievable. Well, look, when the government finally reopens this week, we're expecting Congress can take on the Clarity Act, the long-awaited crypto market regulation bill, bipartisan talks reportedly resuming in the Senate. Mr. Chairman, what can you tell us? Because no doubt a reopening is good for financial services and for crypto as well, right?
You bet, because we have pending before the Congress a National Defense Authorization Bill trying to repair the ag damage to our economy from no farm bill during the Biden administration, no Biden enforcement of the Chinese soybeans deal. We need an ag bill, and that's another reason to open to Congress. You're right. We've made progress during September and October on market structure for digital assets. The Clarity Act, which we passed with 78 Democrats in the House back in July, is now subject of intensive work in the Senate by both Senate Democrats and Republicans on the Banking Committee and on the Senate Agriculture Committee. They're making strong progress, and I hope we can conclude that in coming days. It's been hurt by the shutdown, so I'm looking forward to working with them and getting it across the floor and to President Trump's desk.
Okay.
So you can imagine why we're all incredibly excited about this. When this legislation passes, we're going to see massive positive reactions across the entire crypto market. But here's what I think is really important. Utility-based projects that have been working hard to pave the way for mass adoption, they're going to absolutely benefit from this clarity. This isn't just good news for one or two coins. This is game-changing for the entire crypto space as we know it. But all right, let's circle back to ETFs because this is where things get really interesting. Think about it. We've got the Clarity Act moving forward. We've got all these positive developments happening with the SEC, and now we're seeing these ETF launches. All of this together, it's creating the perfect storm for serious, institutional-grade adoption. And that's exactly why ETFs are such a crucial piece of this puzzle right now. They're giving traditional investors a way to get exposure to crypto without having to navigate exchanges or worry about custody. Now, let me take you back to something we touched on earlier, that Rex Osprey ETF situation. There's some important details here that I want to make sure everyone understands. So, Eleanor Tourette brought up something really important here, and I want to break this down for you because there's been some confusion in the community about this. Rex Shares actually quoted an update from Canary Funds, and they made a really interesting point. They said, not the first, and here's what they mean by that. See, the Rex Shares XRP ETF was technically first to market, but here's the catch. It falls under the Investment Company Act of 1940, which means it only has partial spot XRP exposure. Plus, the tax treatment isn't as efficient as what we're about to see. But here's where Canary Funds is about to change the game completely. They're launching what they're calling the first pure play ETF under the 33 Act. And when I say pure play, I mean 100% XRP exposure, nothing else mixed in there. This is huge because you're getting direct, full exposure to XRP's price movements without any of the complications or dilution that comes with other structures. It's exactly what XRP holders have been waiting for. And this is exactly what we should have expected. This is all happening tomorrow. So yeah, this is going to be absolutely massive. I'm personally keeping a close eye on this and waiting for any updates or official confirmations as they come in. But guys, let me tell you why this ETF is such a huge deal for XRP. We're finally going to see how institutional money reacts to having direct access to XRP through traditional investment channels. Everyone in the crypto community has been talking about this non-stop, and honestly, I can see why. Just think about how absolutely wild this is for a second.
We're literally about to have a live XRP ETF trading on major exchanges. I mean, if someone told you 3 years ago that we'd be here right now, you probably would have laughed at them. The landscape has completely transformed. We've gone from regulatory uncertainty and constant legal battles to having institutional-grade investment products. It's like we're living in a completely different crypto world than we were just a few years ago. You know what really hit me? I just read this incredible post from Naroshi that perfectly sums up how insane this transformation has been. He said, just over 1 year ago, the SEC was appealing a court decision that XRP didn't meet the legal definition of a security. On Thursday, it looks like the first 33 Act spot XRP ETF will launch. It's hard to describe the crypto regulatory shift over the past year, night and day. And guys, he's absolutely right. It is night and day. When you really stop and think about what's happened in just the last 12 months, it's honestly mind-blowing. We went from the SEC literally fighting in court to prevent XRP from being recognized as anything other than a security, to now having institutional investment products launching left and right. That's not just progress, that's a complete 180-degree turn. This is exactly why I'm so bullish on what's coming next. We're witnessing the systematic removal of every single obstacle that was preventing these digital assets from reaching their true potential. All those regulatory roadblocks that kept institutional money on the sidelines, they're disappearing one by one. And you know what's beautiful about this? XRP is leading the charge. It's right there at the forefront of this entire transformation.
Now, speaking of the ETF, I came across another post that I absolutely had to share with you guys. This one's from RZXRP, and it's actually from Paul Barron's YouTube channel featuring Stephen McClurg. Now, if you don't know who Stephen McClurg is, this guy is the CEO of Canary Capital, the company behind this XRP ETF we've been talking about. So when he speaks about this stuff, you better believe we need to listen. I'm bringing this up because what he's saying here is absolutely crucial for understanding what's really happening behind the scenes with this ETF launch. Plus, I've got some numbers that I want to break down for you that directly relate to his comments. So pay close attention to what he's about to say, because this is coming straight from the source, the guy who's literally making this ETF happen. Let's dive into it.
When you look at the flow that we've seen with Solana, the BSOL, Bitwise did a great job getting that one out on the ground, and absolutely crazy numbers. One of the best performing ETFs that we've seen so far, especially in digital assets. How do you think these XRP ETFs will perform against that?
Yeah, I actually think that XRP will probably double what Solana did in its first week and even today, as far as volume and as far as total AUM. If you just even look at the market caps of the two tokens, XRP is about 50% higher than Solana. Yeah. But the difference is, and we experienced this with HBAR last week or 2 weeks ago now, the HBAR ETF experienced $70 million in inflows just in the first 3 days. And it's because it's really well known among institutional circles and enterprise investors. Yeah. So even though it's not a big retail product, it doesn't have a ton of volume, it's got the right kind of interest. And that's how XRP is. Solana is probably a little bit more of a retail token. XRP is much more of a financial services, enterprise, institutional token. And when you put that into an ETF, even though it's only 50% more market cap, it'll probably be 100% or 200% more inflows because of the institutional audience.
So he's saying that XRP can double what Solana did, just for reference. All right, so let me share some absolutely mind-blowing numbers with you about BIOL. That's Solana's first ETF that just launched. Are you ready for this? $30 million of inflows into BIOL just yesterday alone. But here's the crazy part. Solana has been seeing positive inflows every single day for the past 8 days straight since launch. We're talking over $500 million in total inflows already. This just proves what we've been saying all along. Investors are hungry for exposure to these major altcoins. And with BIOL, they've created exactly what the market wanted. A high-quality way to get 100% Solana exposure with super low fees. Now, when you look at how incredibly well this Solana ETF has performed, it's absolutely insane to think about what could happen with XRP. We could potentially be looking at doubling those inflow numbers, maybe even more. And speaking of XRP ETFs, we also got some incredible insights from Matt Hugan at Bitwise. He was back on Paul Barron's channel talking specifically about XRP ETFs and just how massive he thinks they're going to be for the space. Let me tell you what he had to say. I saw this brilliant observation from Zay Crypto that I think really nails what people are missing about the XRP ETF potential. He said, the mistake people make with an XRP ETF is taking the median view of XRP in the crypto community. That doesn't matter. What matters is the strong, committed XRP community ready to allocate. And guys, this is such an important point. A lot of people are looking at general crypto sentiment and thinking, oh, XRP is polarizing in the community, so maybe the ETF won't do well. But that's completely missing the bigger picture. What really matters isn't what Bitcoin maximalists or Ethereum fans think about XRP. What matters is that there's an incredibly passionate, dedicated XRP community that's been waiting years for this kind of institutional access. These are people who have been hodling through lawsuits, regulatory uncertainty, and market cycles. Now they finally have a way to increase their allocation through traditional investment accounts, retirement funds, and institutional channels. That's where the real demand is going to come from. Let me break this down for you.
Of course, is the XRP ETFs. We had Stephen on the other day, and he throws out some crazy numbers. And he's saying that there's a possibility he thinks that we could see double of what Solana has done so far. Do you agree with that in terms of the XRP ETF?
Yeah, I love Steve. I look forward to competing with him on XRP, but he's a good friend. Yes, I think there will be significant interest. The thing that people get wrong about crypto is an asset like XRP definitely has divisive views in the community. There are many people who love it, and there are many people who are skeptical of it. The thing about ETF flows is the people who are skeptical don't matter. All that matters is that there are people who are excited to buy it. That's why you see high inflows. So I think the mistake people make when they estimate something like an XRP ETF is they take the median view of XRP in the crypto community. It doesn't matter. It's that there's this strong, committed community of people who are excited for this product, and they will allocate. So I think XRP will be a big success. I don't know if it will double Solana, but it will.
So look, he's not saying it's definitely going to double Solana's performance, but he absolutely believes this is going to be a massive success. And honestly, I completely agree with him. Think about it. XRP has already been crushing it this cycle. I've talked about this multiple times on the channel, but the performance we've seen, the attention XRP is getting, it's been absolutely incredible. But here's what I think is about to happen. We're going to witness these ETFs go absolutely ballistic, and that's going to have a huge impact on XRP's price. And here's why. This is going to lock up massive amounts of supply. Remember, when institutions buy through ETFs, they're taking real XRP off exchanges and putting it into vaults. That means less supply available for retail traders like us, which creates serious upward pressure on price. But guys, the ETF is just one piece of this puzzle. We've got institutional adoption ramping up, enterprise adoption taking off, and institutional DeFi pools becoming reality. I've talked about this with Hedera too. We're seeing utility explode from multiple angles simultaneously. Now here's where people get confused about XRP's supply. Everyone sees 100 billion tokens and thinks, oh my god, that's way too much. But here's what they're not understanding. When you factor in all these use cases, ETFs, institutional adoption, cross-border payments, DeFi, that 100 billion, it's actually not enough supply to meet the demand that's coming. The math just doesn't add up for bearish scenarios when you really think about it. Look, I get it. When you compare 100 billion XRP to Bitcoin's 21 million coins, it seems like there's way too much supply out there. But here's what changes everything. We're not just talking about speculative trading anymore. We're talking about ETFs buying up millions of tokens and locking them away. We're talking about banks and financial institutions needing XRP for cross-border payments. We're talking about enterprise adoption, where companies are holding massive amounts for utility purposes. When you add all of that up, that 100 billion supply suddenly doesn't look so big anymore. This is exactly why I believe we're heading towards some serious supply shocks. The demand is going to force the price much higher, just to accommodate all the different use cases competing for the same limited supply. And guys, this isn't some far-off dream. This is becoming reality right now with everything we're seeing in the market. The fundamentals are lining up perfectly, and that's why I'm so bullish on where XRP is headed. All right, future millionaires, if this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening with XRP and these ETFs, smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because I'm bringing you this kind of analysis completely free, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. And hey, feel free to follow me on